Now we come to the conjunctive participle. So the conjunctive participles means it is the another non-finite verb form that expresses the sequential or the manner relationship. So between the two or more action performed by the same subject. So this is the conjunctive participle. So conjunctive participle like with in the base form in kha we are adding kar in Urdu, or we better be write in the kar like this kar, or in ja plus kar, and so plus kar. So that is the khakar, sokar, jakar. These are the conjunctive participles. So they are basically just adding the two sequential or the two events or the two action, and the both action performed by the same subject. Like वो खाकर स्कूल जाएगा, वो सोकर टेस्ट देने जाएगा. So this kind of things or this kind of sentences where the two sequential events performed by the same subject, so they are adding by the conjunctive participle. So that is the another form of the non-finite verb. So they are all the hallmark of the South Asian language, the South Asian feature. So in South Asian, so there are lots of features, there are lots of features of the language. So the conjunctive participle is one of that feature. So where the series of verbal actions are chained together to describe the complex event compactly or the fluidly. Means in this types of conjunctive participle there are some chain of event like the two or two events. So we are just adding them very compactly by the help of the conjunctive participle. So that is the one of the feature of South Asian languages. So Urdu Hindi also has this conjunctive participle. So we have in many languages in South Asian we have this conjunctive participle. So Schmidt described the conjunctive participle are the verb form used to connect two actions. The first performed prior to or along with the second. Or similarly, McGregor defines them as a non-finite verbal form that links clauses, emphasizing their role as connectors between main and the subordinate clause. So basically, they are connecting the two events, and both events performed by the same subject. Masika further notes that they play a key role in in conjunction reduction, so allowing the speaker to omit the repeated subject or auxiliaries when two actions share the same subject. So that is the another role of this conjunctive participle. So we are just omitting and we are just skipping the subject, where we are not repeating the subject twice, but we are just adding with the conjunctive participle. वो सोकर खाना खाएगा. We are not saying वो सोएगा और फिर खाना खाएगा और फिर वो खाना खाएगा. So that we are using only one subject and we are also omitting the conjunctive participle. So that is the formation of conjunctive participle. So basically the conjunctive participle in Urdu Hindi are formed by just adding the suffix kar in the perfective verb stem of the lexical form. So this construction creates a non-finite verbal form that typically denotes an action completed prior to or in conjunction with another action. So the suffix kar is the primary and the most productive marker of conjunctive participle. We are also sometimes using the k in some colloquial or the some variety of Urdu Hindi. Like वो खाना खा के स्कूल जाएगा instead of वो खाना खाकर स्कूल जाएगा. So it is invariant, that is it does not show the agreement with gender, number and person, and combines with the perfective stem of the verb. So it does not agree, means it is not inflected for any gender, number or person, means with subject or object. So it does not have the any agreement with subject object in terms of gender, number and person. So there are list of verbs, the conjunctive participle, there is a non-finite verb form of the conjunctive participle. So in the verb root, like we are just adding the kar in the root, verb root. We can say the verb root. So like likh, in the likh we are adding the kar. So like likh kar bheja, खाकर, पीकर, देकर, लेकर, बोलकर, चलकर, सोकर, खेलकर, पढ़कर, सुनकर, देखकर. So this kind of construction. So it actually adding the two actions. So here we have the example uh, for this. So we are just skipping the subject also. In this example, just we are giving the whole means the basic construction of the conjunctive participle. लिख कर भेजा, खाकर सो गया, पीकर खुश हुआ, देकर गया, लेकर गया. So we can also add in some subject like चलकर आया, सोकर उठा, खेलकर थका, पढ़कर समझा, सुनकर माना गया. यह लड़का खाकर सो गया. So here खाकर सो गया. So there are two events, लिखकर and भेजा, and there are one subject, only one subject. वो पीकर खुश हुआ, लड़का पीकर खुश हुआ. देकर गया, वो खत देकर चला गया. लेकर आया, वो we can say that वो पानी लेकर आया. यह लड़का पानी लेकर आया. We are adding two events here by the same subject. So the morphologically the conjunctive participle is derived, not inflected. So it does not inflect for tense or agreement, but retain the verbal semantics. So the perfective base ensure that the first fraction is interpreted as completed before the second. So actually it is in the perfective form. The first event in the perfective form. So it gives the meaning, the sense of perfective. वो सोकर स्कूल गया. When we have something is done in the perfect form. So this is the so we are showing some completed before the, so the first event has completed before the second event. This kind of perfectiveness we have in this construction of the conjunctive participle. So now we have some irregular verb forms or conjunctive participle. So all small set of high frequency verb in Urdu-Hindi show the show irregular or the suppletive stem in the conjunctive participle formation. So that is the suppletion. So these forms are historically rooted and synchronically fixed in the language. Like dena change into dekar, lena change into lekar, karna change into karki, and pina change into peaker. So these irregularities arises from same alternation in the perfective form like dena into diya, lena into liya. So but the conjunctive participle instead of using they, le followed the kar, this pattern has been lexicalized. Speaker learn these forms as the part of the verb paradigm. So we are alternatively also using the k in some colloquial or in some variety like वो खाना खाकर सो गया और वो खाना खा के सो गया. वो अपने पिता को बोल कर गया और वो अपने पिता को बोल के गया. So this kind of का, बोल, खा के और खाकर, बोल के and बोलकर. So K is more common in spoken Hindi. Kar remains in the standard form of both Urdu Hindi formal Hindi writing. So in writing we are using, or in some standard form we are using kar, but it is we are also using K form in some colloquial or at the spoken level. So in terms of functions of conjunctive participle, so it is the non-finite verbs and it is formed by the just we are adding some kar or k into the perfective stem of the verb, and it's typically precede the main clause. So it gives the first function means there is the one function of this conjunctive participle is the sequential action. So there are two successive sequential events. And this is the most prototypical of frequent use of the conjunctive participle. So it denotes the temporal succession. One action is completed before the next begins. So that's kind of succession is there. When the next action begins, before that the first action has completed. Like वो पढ़कर स्कूल गया. या वो पढ़कर गया, वो सोकर पढ़ने बैठा, या वो सो या वो खाकर सो गया, वो खाकर सो गया. So that is, first he has eat something, then he starts sleeping. So that's kind of things. So that is conjunctive participle express the anteriority. The first action is temporary prior. So, and the subject is understood to be the same in both clauses, which avoids repetition and promotes the syntactic compact, compactness. So that is, Masika referred to this things as a conjunction reduction. So we are just reducing the auxiliary and the subject, means the doer of action or the subject of the sentence. So we are not using like the subject twice. So in some form like खाकर सो गया, वो खाकर सो गया. In terms of the second function is the manner. So in some cases the conjunctive participle denotes the manner. So it specifies how the second action was performed. So here the conjunctive participle functions almost adverbally, like हंस कर बोला, मुस्कुरा कर देखा. So it explains they have the indicate that manner or attitude accompanying the main action. So Kachru notes that these forms enrich the expressiveness of colloquial Urdu Hindi. So adding the emotional or the stylistic nuances, like हंसकर बोला, मुस्कुरा कर देखा. So some adverbial use of conjunctive participle. So it is the different manner. So it used in the colloquial form or the spoken form, or to add some emotional or the stylistic nuances. So it actually so the meaning would be more expressive when we are using this kind of expression in colloquial language or in spoken language or in some other poetic language. And the other function of conjunctive participle is the instrumental of the causal relation, like लिख कर याद किया, मेहनत करके पास हुआ, उसने लिख कर याद किया, वो मेहनत करके पास हुआ. So the conjunctive participle act or can also indicate the means, cause, or the instrumentality. That is, the first action provide the methods or the reason for the second. So here the kar implies by means of or the result of. The first action is not merely the prior but causally linked to the outcome of the second. So this functional versatility of vers, versatility of kar, sequential manner, causal, is one reason it is considered as a hallmark of South Asian features. So it is the very crucial feature of South Asian languages. In it is also functioning in the negation. So negating a conjunctive participle causes is relatively rare but systematically possible. Like we can say ना बगैर पढ़े सो गया, वो बगैर पढ़े सो गया. So it is not formed by them ना करके गया. We are saying some like in some form वो मुझे ना करके गया. So this kind of negation sometime we can use, but it is very rare in this conjunctive participle. Now we have the passive participles. So the passive participles are the verbal adjective that denotes an action experienced or the received by the subject rather than performed by it. So they play a central role in the expressing the passive and resultative meanings in Urdu Hindi grammar. So Schmidt defines when as participle expressing the state of being acted upon. Means this highlight the patient oriented nature of construction. The subject is not the agent. So in the passive participle, so the subject is not an agent, not the doer of action, but the objects become the subject. So subject is the receiver of the action or the experiencer of the action. Like खाना खाया गया. and we can also adding the some agent by adding some postposition like अहमद के ज़रिए खाना खाया गया या खाना अहमद के ज़रिए खाया गया. So it is the basic feature of South Asian languages. So when we are not focusing on the subject, the doer of action, but we are focusing on the action or the object or the receiver or the some results. So that is the passive participle. So we are using the passive participle for denoting this kind of resultative action. So Masika relates the passive participle to the ergative system of Indo-Aryan languages, emphasizing that they include the resultant state linked to the perfective aspect and the passive semantics. So like in the ergative system or then in the ergative aspect, the subject is actually followed by the name, so that is the doer of action. But in passive participle, there is no name marker. So there is no means the subject is not the doer of action. Subject is not the agent, but it is the receiver, or it is the experiencer of the work. So there is another definition that verbal adjectives implying that the action has been received. So this definition captures their dual nature, syntactically verbal but semantically adjectival. So the Kachu observe the passive participle frequently appear in passive and resultative construction, and they contribute for stylistic variation between the formal and the colloquially gesture. So sometimes stylistically or for some other with some focus with some in some variety of for some uses, we are not focusing on the subject but we are focusing on the object, the receiver. So the object becomes subject. So like खाना खाया गया, रोटी पकाई गई, किताब पढ़ी गई, स्कूल जाया गया. So this kind of events are called passive participle. So that is the formation of passive participle. So first we in morphologically or syntactically they are very transparent, but semantically they are rich. So semantically they are focusing on the other things like on the verb and the object. Means we can say the receiver. They are not focusing on the agent who do this thing, who is the doer of that action, but who is affected by that action, which is more important. So they are derived from the perfective participle, that is the past participle form of the verb, combined with the auxiliary jana, that is used as the gaya, gayi, gaye, like likha gaya, soya gaya, kiya gaya, khaya gaya, piya gaya, jaga gaya. So this kind of example comes under the passive participle. So they have the agreement according to the subject or to the feminine and plural for using the gaya, gai and gay and a, e and a. Like roti, like आम खाया गया, रोटी खाई गई and बहुत सारे आम खाए गए. So this kind of agreement we have in the passive participles. So here we have lots of example like लिखा गया, खाया गया, दिया गया, बोला गया, आया गया, किया गया, पढ़ा गया, खेला गया, पिया गया, सुना गया, देखा गया, लिया गया, बेचा गया, खरीदा गया. So these are the passive participles. So they are using in the sentence when you are not focusing on the doer of action. Like सबक पढ़ा गया, we can like खत लिखा गया. So there is no doer of action. There is no agent. But we can add like खत अहमद के द्वारा लिखा गया, खाना अहमद के द्वारा खाया गया, तोहफा बिलाल के द्वारा दिया गया. So when we are adding the action or the agent in this construction, so we are always using the द्वारा or के जरिए to complete the sentence. Like अहमद के जरिए या अहमद के द्वारा तोहफा दिया गया. So there are different, there is some morphological derivation, how we can derive this kind of thing, so that we have already discussed. Like in the basic form, we are adding just a to make it perfective participle, and in this perfective participle, we are combining the auxiliary, that is jana. So in the form of gaya, gayi, gaye and gayi. किताब लिखी गई, खत लिखे गए. So here khat are the plural. So that is the derivation of passive participle. So syntactically, the agent, the doer is omitted, which is not important. किताब लिखी गई, and we can add also, but किताब राम के द्वारा लिखी गई, the किताब राम के जरिए लिखी गई. So here this one is not important. Which is important? किताब is important. Aspectual meaning, it gives the meaning of completion, perfective or the resultative, like दरवाजा बंद किया गया. So the action is completed or resultative, and it has some alignment or some ties between between the voice and ergativity, which is defined by Masika. So in Urdu, the transitive perfective already use the ergative ne on the agent and the participle agreement with the object, that is defined by the Masika. But the passive extend this system by eliminating the ergative agent entirely by making the patient the grammatical subject. So like किताब लिखी गई. So why it is happened? Because there is some reason. So because लिखी गई, so in किताब लिखी गई, या or we can say that दरवाज़ा बंद किया गया और खत लिखा गया, खाना खाया गया. So this is happened because, so it doesn't take the irrigative, but it is in the perfective aspect, or there is transitive verb also, लिखी गई, खाया गया. Why? Because there is no, because of this V2, which is the gai, is the intransitive verb. So the whole sentence actually controlled by this gai, which is the intransitive verb. Because of this gai or gaya, the subject does not take the irrigative name. That is the reason behind it. Like I can give the example that किताब लिखी गई. So here this is the compound verb. Like there we have the V1, there is the V2. So V1 is transitive, लिखी. लिखी is the transitive verb. मैंने किताब लिखी. But when we are adding a V2, which is the intransitive गई, वो गया, हम गए. So that due to that intransitivity, the kitab does not take the irrigative case. Or we can, if we are adding the subject, kitab, kitab, like kitab अहमद के द्वारा लिखी गई. So this is also the Ahmad does not take the ne, because it is in the passive form, so it is actually taking the ke द्वारा or ke जरिए. So it does not take the ne marker, ne alignment in the किताब ने लिखी गई. We are not saying the किताब ने लिखी गई और किताब ने अहमद के द्वारा लिखी गई या किताब अहमद ने लिखी गई. So it is wrong to say because of this gay, which is the intransitive verb. So the whole, so the ergative case cannot assign, or the ergative marker cannot assign in the intransitive when the verb is intransitive. So because even though it is a transitive verb, so because of the V2 is intransitive, so the whole verb form becomes the intransitive. So due to this intransitiveness, there is no name marker in this on the subject. So for some colloquial or stylistic uses, so we are also using this kind of passive participle like लिखा गया, किया गया. So that is the standard. But in the spoken and informal variety, the auxiliary जाना is sometimes replaced by होना. Like किताब लिखी with लिखी हुई है. In passive participle, we are using in the, so it is also used for the official, bureaucratic or the generalist language. Like फैसला सुनाया गया, योजना लागू की गई. So that is the in the passive participle. So here we are not focusing on who actually the doer of action, okay, and who give the verdict, but we are focusing on the announcement. Where we are not focusing on the agent of the who gave the verdict, but we are focusing on the verdict. So that is like the फैसला सुनाया गया. We are not saying who and who actually announced that verdict. योजना लागू की गई. So that is understood, and who is the person who implemented that scheme. So now we have the function. So function means there is a formation. So it is used for canonical, passive, resultative. So it function as canonical, passive, resultative, impersonal or the formal passive. So that canonical means किताब लिखी गई. So it is the prototypical passive. So construction in Hindi Urdu. So it corresponding to the English be plus past. So it describes an event in which the subject is the patient and the undergoer of the action. So while the agent is omitted and optionally expressed. So that is the canonical passive form. So here the subject is not important. किताब लिखी गई. Sometimes we can use अहमद, किताब अहमद के जरिए लिखी गई है, किताब अहमद के द्वारा लिखी गई है. बस basically we are focusing on the subject which is not the agent. So here we have some structure for this. लिखी गई. So optionally it can take the agent किताब राम के जरिए लिखी गई. So it function. So it focuses on the result or the patient, or we can just say the theme. And it is common in the academic journalistic or the formal writing. So emphasizing the event or the achievement rather than the agency, who is the agent of that event or the achievement. Like we can say like इनामात बांटे गए. We are not saying who is distributed the इनामात. And there is some another function is the resultative passive. Means the something here we are just like किया गया काम मुकम्मल है, यह काम किया गया, या रोटी खाई गई. It means something which we are getting in terms of resultant and the completed state in the passive participle. Something has been already done. So that is the interpretation. Means this describes the current state resulting from of the past event. So the event has already completed. So it has the resultative meaning. It has the formal or the descriptive discourse. So it used in the reports, news, and administrative writing, and the construction bridges the passive and perfective aspect. So we basically it is the passive participle, but it shows the perfective aspect. Means something has been already completed, something has been done. Like रास्ता बनाया गया. So that is the focus on existence or the result of the completed action. So in formal or the impersonal passive, we also using for like ऐलान किया गया. So here we are not focusing on the agent, we are focusing on the events. So this passive participle express the impersonal or the agentless action, typically the formal, the bureaucratic, institutional constant. So for the objective, official or generalized purpose. So like normalized verbal form we are using ऐलान, and the structure for this, and the perfective participle plus गया, ऐलान किया गया, फैसला सुनाया गया, मंसूबा पेश किया गया. So it used in the report, news report, government documents and academic text. Sometime in negation we can नहीं लिखा गया, खत नहीं लिखा गया. Also we can, so it survives negation also, passive participle. Like negation in passive participle construction follow a regular syntactic pattern where the negative नहीं precede the passive perfective participle or the auxiliary verb depending on the focus. Like in simple negative नहीं लिखा गया, like खत नहीं लिखा गया, या we can say the राम के जरिए खत नहीं लिखा गया. So that is the regular negation we have in the passive participle. And for emphatic negation also, like किताब लिखी नहीं गई. So here when we are using between in spoken discourse, the negation can also perceive the auxiliary jana, that is gaya, for the emphatic contrast. So it means the kitab nahi likhi gayi, that when the negation is not important, but when we are saying तब लिखी नहीं गई, so here the emphatic negation. For this, some focus. So here I conclude, participles in Urdu-Hindi form a rich and dynamic system that lies at intersection of morphology, syntax and semantics. So we have different types of participle, that is the imperfective participle, conjunctive participle and the passive participle. So perfective participle formed by the ta, ti, te ending. So it describe and explain the ongoing, habitual, progressive action, and the perfective participle, so that is formed by the e and a ending of the verb. So it discuss or it describe the completed action or the resultative action. So in terms of adjectival or the nominal usage, and the conjunctive participle, that is formed by the, in the base verb we are adding the kar or ke. So it actually linking the two event or the two action, and which is actually done by the same subject. So the two sequential event, so it is linked by the conjunctive participle, like वो खाना खाकर स्कूल गया. And the passive participle, the another participle which give where the object or the experiencer is more important, or the whereas the agent is not important, but the event is more important. So we are not focusing on the agent, the doer of action, but we are focusing on the result, or we are focusing on the events. So I conclude here. Thank you.